Welcome everyone to today's CSIA Business Webinar, Services, Opportunities After the Project is Done. My name is Holly Lundgren and I will be your host today. For those of you who are unfamiliar with CSIA, we are a global nonprofit professional association with over 500 member companies in 40 countries. Our mission is to advance the practice of control system integration to benefit our members and their clients. Our vision is to ensure that manufacturing and process industries everywhere have access to low-risk, safe, and successful application of automation technology. CSIA membership offers members access to resources needed to attain and exceed business goals. To highlight just a few of our many member benefits, the CSIA Best Practices Manual guides control system integration companies in the setup and running of a solid company. CSIA's Business Insurance Program offers members a great insurance program for business owners, subcontractors, and more. The program includes members from all over the world enjoying the peace of mind that comes with CSIA insurance. And clients in all industries are now also seeking integrators with a CSIA certification. They recognize CSIA certified integrators' commitment to industry standards and business acumen. As a result, being certified can shorten the sales cycle. CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange is the premier automation guide featuring system integrators and suppliers who provide industrial, manufacturing, and process automation solutions. For integrators and suppliers, it's a place to market their expertise. Clients will find white papers, case studies, capabilities, contact information, and engage in conversation directly with CSIA members. Please follow CSIA's online events calendar for all upcoming webinars, including both partner and business webinars. You won't want to miss these opportunities to learn from the comfort of your own office or home. And for more information about CSIA or any of our programs, please visit our website or contact us at 847-686-2245. At this time, I would like to introduce our presenters. Jack Barber is a senior business consultant with Exotek. Jack brings 30 years of experience during his tenure at National Instruments, most of which focused on building the NI system integration business as the Alliance Program Manager. In his Alliance role, he recognized the critical importance of assisting Alliance partners to gain the business acumen necessary to manage and grow their organizations. He also spent 7 years in NI Global Services and Support to deliver large-scale solutions to NI's most strategic and demanding customers. Don Roberts brings almost 40 years of domestic and international systems integration experience to the position of principal at Exotek LLC. Due to the diversity of his professional experiences and his commitment to the future focus of the industry, Don has become a leader in providing guidance to control systems integrators as they steer their companies through periods of significant growth. In addition to sitting on the board of a number of companies, Don also is responsible for performing business-level audits globally to assess companies' compliance with the CSIA certification program. At this time, I'll turn it over to our distinguished presenters. Welcome, Jack and Don.
Thanks.
Thanks, Holly, and hello, everyone. For those of you that aren't familiar with Exotek, we are, at least to our knowledge, the only company that focuses exclusively on business consulting for the control system integration industry. In addition to being well known for our collaboration with CSIA to found and develop the CSIA Best Practice and Certification Program, we offer a variety of consulting engagements to meet our clients' needs. Today, CSIA has asked us to talk about service opportunities after the project. Okay, in February of 2017, ARC published a report entitled Success in the New Generation of Automation Services. They opened with automation lifecycle services have become one of the most attractive automation markets for several reasons. First of all, end users are expanding their outsourcing strategies. Secondly, servicing a large installed base is less volatile than just selling the hardware itself. And the industry itself is changing from a less license-based on-premises implementations to more subscription-based software as a services models. They concluded that the overall life cycle cost of automation equipment can amount to 3 to 5 times the initial purchase price of the hardware itself. So in this presentation, we want to first look at the trends that are affecting the overall industry, with customers in particular, and then with the service providers themselves, and how this is affecting the growing opportunity of services after the project. Then we can recommend things for you to consider as you approach these new opportunities. Let's start with the industry in general. First of all, our entire industry, regardless of whether it's being manufactured or processed, is being impacted by the increased complexity, agility, and importance and convergence of technology. Our customers are simply being overwhelmed by new technology, struggling to understand, much less integrate these technologies into their process and operations. At the enterprise level, you know, vendors like Microsoft and AT&T are rapidly advancing technologies that the IT organizations that our customers are using. For instance, how can customers harness the availability of cloud computing to improve their processes? And then at the other end of the spectrum, there's new operational technology. For instance, how will advancements in wireless technologies like 5G affect the connectivity in their plants? As a consequence, we see major service vendors like Cisco and Rockwell bridging the gap, giving us more opportunities to provide additional value as these technologies converge, both with their existing systems and installing new systems. Oh, sorry, I didn't advance the slide. Don, if you catch me doing that, feel free to advance the slide for me. Okay, second trend we wanted to talk to is from a hardware perspective. We continue to see increasing capability for lower cost. Where once it would cost, say, $2,000 for 2 kilobytes of memory, now you can get gigabytes of storage for a fraction of the cost. Similarly, the computational speed of integrated processors continues to increase at an exponential pace. We've gone from controllers consisting of open contacts to ones that have FPGAs, from isolated devices to multiple wired and wireless connections. As a result, a significant percentage of the capacity of these systems are now underutilized. And if more capacity is needed, it can be easily added. So as hardware vendors continue to put more technology into their products, how can we best stay on top of the technology wave? Not only take advantage of it and offer our customers with more value, but how to keep it going and service it along the way. Or perhaps even add this technology to and around existing systems as we need to reach for that technology to improve things for our customers.
Yeah, Jack, if you go back to that slide, I remember those PLC 230 days, and when you had that unit in play, you were squeezing every single bit or byte out of that unit that you can just to get the job done. And now you have a Raspberry Pi you can throw in for $35 and have just an unbelievable amount of power. And when you run out, throw another one in, or throw in FPGAs. So there's just a tremendous amount of capacity to add small incremental features and not really negatively impact the performance of the production facility. Big change from a number of years ago.
All right. So with this greater capability and connectivity, there is an increasing demand for data-driven processes. As represented in this graphic from Aachen University about Industry 4.0, we are seeing an evolution from computerization to connectivity to visibility to transparency to predictive capacity and finally to adaptability. As depicted here, the first two phases, computerization and connectivity, required hardware to create that data and then to access that data. But the next four phases now are opportunities to use that data for additional services. It may be a little data, it may be a lot, it may be consolidated data at the edge, or it might be just feeding the data to big machines. Anything's kind of possible, but change is inevitable, and this itself will fuel more post-project opportunities to harness that data and use it for the customer's benefit.
Yeah, and Jack, this is just one maturity model. There's multiple maturity models starting to develop out there, and I think we'll hear a little bit more about the Singapore model at the conference coming up in May. But when we look at the traditional system integrator, they typically are playing in 1 and 2, so the computerization and the connectivity. A number of them are getting into SCADA environments or things of that nature, which is providing a little bit more visibility. But there's a huge opportunity in 4, 5, and 6 on this model, where we're starting to apply machine learning, artificial intelligence, all of that sort of stuff. And to your point, that's really just incremental services on top of the system that was already put in place. So making sure that we are staying with the client to help them provide that, I think it's going to be pretty critical.
Okay. All right. So now we've talked about some of the industry trends. Let's look at some of the trends with our customers themselves that are impacting post-project service opportunities. So first of all, many of our customers are no longer have extensive automation departments that they once had, choosing to focus their somewhat limited engineering resources on the core products themselves. So they are outsourcing not only the implementation of their production systems and processes, but their maintenance of those systems as well. As customers look to do this, they kind of first look to the full automation suppliers to serve as the main automation contractor, but increasingly it's becoming more difficult for customers to acquire all the products, including the necessary integration tools from a single supplier. So over time, what we're seeing is more integrators and automation engineering firms are formalizing these offerings to fill this space. This works well with many end users because it provides them with more choices, quite frankly, on how to implement and maintain a modern automation project. The one looming challenge is, will a client trust a, say, multi-million, billion, or even $1 billion project to a $10 million integrator? Perhaps, but not unless we're experts in the process or a critical part of their product development or production. So when we look, when our customers are looking for big companies with deep pockets that they can count on, we must be able to provide them with credible solutions on how we will implement and maintain the systems for them, so they don't have to have a department dedicated to do that themselves. In fact, our customers' expectations for a solution is evolving. They not only want the whole product, that is the complete solution customized to meet their specific needs, but they may want it globally deployed and supported. Further, they may want seamless implementation that integrates their manufacturing processes worldwide. So it's becoming not just about how you would deploy and be able to fix systems on a worldwide basis, but how you can improve it. And while the customers are demanding higher and higher value, they also want to keep the total cost of ownership from increasing. So keep in mind that there may be more money in operating expenditures and less in capital expenditures. Consequently, it's not just about the money that's available for the project itself, but there may be more money available and the operating expenditures after the project itself. As anecdotal evidence of this increasing demand, I love this quote that I got from a worldwide director of services of a major vendor who had a customer tell him after explaining their offering for post services, the customer looked at him and said, "Hey, you don't tell me what to eat, I tell you what to cook." So a great example of needing to be able to provide those post services solutions as a whole product that meets their expectations. All right, another trend with respect to our customers is DevOps. It's, as implied by its name, it's the confluence of product development and manufacturing operations. The goal of DevOps is to shorten system development life cycles while offering features, fixes, and updates frequently in close alignment with their business objectives and intent for their products. By integrating these functions of development and operations together, the customer can introduce a minimal viable product to the market faster and then rapidly iterate and innovate to gain market share. So this kind of business strategy with and some of our customers, consequently, they're not manufacturing a finished product, and therefore the manufacturing process is likely, probably inevitably going to change. So our ability and willingness to adapt the systems after the initial project development is also becoming a necessity. And there's more new opportunity for the manufacturing process itself to actually provide feedback that influences the product iterations themselves.
Yeah, Jack, I'm going to jump in on that one a little bit too.
Yeah.
What we're seeing some of the integrators out there do now is talk to the client about an MVP for their process. So we're going to give you a process line that's up and running. What's the minimum viable process in this case that you need? And then we'll stick with you for over the next few years to continue to add features and functionality to that process. So we are definitely starting to hear some of the integrators that adapt to that. In the past, it was just, very, very rigid functional specs and final acceptance tests, and then that's it, go home. We're definitely seeing the trend away from that. Integrating the integrator closer to the operations.
Yeah, much less the development itself, yeah. Okay. So the final aspect that we want to talk about with respect to changing of the customer base is their expectations are being influenced by their own experience in the consumer space. For instance, smartphones provide instant access to data. They come to expect that from the systems that are going to be deployed. The concept of microservices create the perception that we all should be able to add functionality quickly. Just download a new app to your phone. How can we just download a new app into our systems and give it more capability? Sometimes they don't even know how they want to incorporate a new consumer technology. They just see something like mapping technology and begin asking how can they incorporate that into their operations. In some cases, consumer technology can actually change an entire industry. Consider the taxi services monopoly, if you call it that. It's been totally transformed with consumer technology that created Uber and Lyft. So Don and I were talking the other day, could we see a similar analogy with the DCS industry being eroded by rapid technology change? So it's something to keep in mind. This is really just a start. One thing we can tell you is that the rapid advancement of consumer technology will increasingly impact our customers' expectations and the expectations for the solutions that we deploy and how we can adapt and maintain them over time.
Yeah, Jack, on that DCS industry, if there's anybody on the call that is, or in the webinar that is in the process industry and you're not tracking the OPAF, Open Process Automation Forum, I strongly encourage you to at least keep an eye on what's going on there. It may be months, years before we see any impact of that, but it will have an impact.
Awesome. Okay, now let's turn our attention to some of the trends that are affecting the service providers themselves. And by service providers, we mean the vendors, the system integrators, and other providers that are trying to capture this post-project business. First of all, let's talk about the vendors themselves. In Q4 of 2017, CSIA, which is the Technology Service Industry Association, conducted a survey that monitors the top 50 companies, technology companies. That includes companies like Rockwell Automation, Cisco, Honeywell, Autodesk, and I won't name all 50, but as you can see here, there is a growing trend toward more revenue from services rather than product sales. In fact, as their products have gotten commoditized, the vendors are now making more money off services than they are products. So you can see from the red line actually shrinking, contracting on their product sales, but the growing services line, the blue line there, is actually transitioned over. As a result, TSI further reported that 59% of the companies have experienced flat or declining product revenue, yet 70% experience growth in services revenue. So we have to anticipate that the vendors will continue to expand their service offerings as they see this trend continue.
Yeah, and I think that because they're members of that association, they're continuously getting hammered with the recommendation, yes, service, service, service. So we're looking at the consequence of that, but I think that the messaging that they're receiving is that they need to continue to focus on more and more of the services, and that'll have an impact.
Right, right. So let's consider the, beyond the vendors, we see integrators creating and expanding their post-project organizations. We should note that these service organizations are separate from the project resources. They're not the people that actually developed the systems, but they're dedicated to the post-project services and have a very different business model, which we'll talk more about later. We also see entirely new post-project service providers emerging. These are companies that focus exclusively on the commissioning and maintaining of systems. They actually partner with vendors and integrators, relying on them to implement the system, then provide the labor for commissioning and maintenance of those systems. And also keep in mind that these opportunities, as these opportunities increase, the potential for O&M, operational and maintenance services industry, are increasing too, for them to look at this space. So, Don, I know you had an example of wind turbines.
If you just take a look at the wind turbine industry alone, the O&M market there was about $3 billion in 2008, and it's expected to be $19 billion by 2020. That's just the O&M space there, and one of the key concerns in the O&M space for wind turbine services is that there's a huge lack of skilled manpower. So I'm just picking one little example of how big the space is post-project, post-implementation of an entire wind turbine farm, and using that as an example. I think there's another example of sort of new people coming into the space. So I'm going to read a little bit here from a company I ran across. They've achieved a critical asset uptime of 98% by utilizing reliability-centered maintenance. They successfully maintain more than 70,000 pieces of equipment, including 4,000 critical assets. They validated more than $10 million in cost savings for their clients through self-performance activities, improved asset performance, streamlined work processes, worker productivity, as well as technology deployment and vendor management. This is a $20 billion a year company. Now, that all sounds pretty good, and yeah, we've seen other big companies kind of close in on the space. This company is AECOM. Now, if you're anything like me, I only ever saw them fixing roads, but now they actually have a full industrial commercial operations and maintenance part of their organization doing that level. So we really need to keep our eyes open as to where the competition is going to start to come from. But obviously there's a lot of money there when you get people that are used to fixing roads and building businesses, building bridges and buildings and stuff like that, saying, hey, there's the whole industrial process side of it that we could jump into.
Great. All right. So here's another interesting trend that we should look at is some companies are now selling outcomes rather than a product or a service. For instance, selling light as a service. Some lighting vendors will now install LEDs for free and then send the customer a monthly invoice for the amount of energy that is saved by using the more efficient lighting. The lights are smart enough that they can track how long they were on, so companies can calculate the energy savings over conventional lighting. Consequently, the clients get an upgraded lighting system and the energy bill is the same or maybe even lower than it was before. So a completely different approach to selling services around and after a project. So
and that's totally
there.
And that's totally OpEx, not CapEx.
Yeah. So again, just to encourage your thinking, challenge your ideas about how you can actually even best serve a client or get access to those monies in coming at it a different way. All right, the last thing we wanted to talk about with respect to service providers is we see an increasing need to deal with cybersecurity. In 2016, Joe Weiss of Applied Control Solutions tracked some 950 cyber incidents that included over 100 with significant equipment damage, over 70 with significant environmental impact, and some that even involved deaths. The total financial impact was in excess of $50 billion. As another data point, IBM also in 2016 acknowledged that attacks of industrial control systems had increased 110% year over year. So, consider this, the ransomware industry has surpassed $1 billion. Today, there are organizations that are making significantly more money hacking than the companies that are producing products to protect against it. The EU is serious about the protection of data, and many customers are going to have to comply with the GDPR, the General Data Protection Requirement regulations. Now, while experts will admit you can't provide 100% protection from cybersecurity, we are seeing customers more likely to ask about how you're going to protect their systems, how you're going to alert them if something is happening, and what steps do you and they need to take to minimize the damage. Don, did you want to provide your example here?
Yeah, one of the things that we talked a little bit about this in the panel at the last conference is a lot of integrators are not even expressing to their customers what level of cybersecurity they're going to provide. So there could be a very large disconnect between what the customers are expecting and what the integrators are actually planning on providing. Be very careful to be explicit about that in the offer to the customer. The example that Jack was referring to is a very large customer of an integrator that had some downtime, pulled out the business card for the employee that had put the system in, called the person. Person said, yeah, sure, I can fix it. It was after hours. So the end user, the large customer, allowed them access into their system. They got on the system and did the repairs, and all was fine. And it all sounded like a pretty good story until the integrator found out, because that employee, he'd left the company a couple months ago. And nobody had gone through and changed all the passwords or linkages or any of that sort of stuff. It turned out okay because it was just a good employee that didn't do any damage, but you can imagine the customer was pretty upset about it.
All right. So, so hopefully by presenting these various trends, we provoked your interest in exploring post-project services. If so, here are some things to consider as you pursue them. First of all, consider that there are different types of services. At the rudimentary level, service types range from simple problem resolution to plan modifications and maintenance, as well as other service offerings like staff augmentation or spare and replacement part supply. When implementing these services into your business, you'll need to address elements such as strategic management of that area, the organizational structure for that area, as well as the methodologies for deploying those services and managing those services as well. So for more information, we recommend that you take advantage of the CSIA Best Practices Manual, Chapter 9 in particular, which covers service and support and will give you some good detailed ideas of what you'll need to consider and implement as you expand services in this area.
Yeah, Jack, I want to jump in there. One of the experiences that we have in terms of doing the audits and stuff like that, we see a lot of integrators that are focused pretty heavily on chapters 5 and 6, the project management and the project life cycle, and really haven't even sort of cracked open the Chapter 9 section of the best practices, and I strongly encourage you to take a look at it. There's probably a significant amount of your business that you're actually doing right now that is more a service than it is a project, and so you're kind of using a project methodology to deliver a service, which is not necessarily the best. So yeah, open up Chapter 9. It's got a lot of really good stuff. There's a couple of questions that we do audit in Chapter 9, but the whole chapter's pretty good. And then also in terms of working with the client and working with other vendors, there are a lot of things going on right now in the form of collaboration. So partnering with your customer, maybe partnering with your customer and some vendors. So if you're not familiar with, say, ISO 44001, which is the business collaboration standard, or the Association of Strategic Alliance Professionals, I'd encourage you to just dig around and look at that a little bit. We're starting to see the collaborative methodology being almost as important as the project methodology was 15 years ago. So I encourage you to look into that a little bit.
All right. So with respect to the service structure, and we kind of alluded to this earlier, implementing your service organization requires a well thought out model, because it's likely to be very different from your current business. For instance, you'll need to dedicate resources that are separate from, but still have access to, your project resources. And those resources will likely be compensated differently, such as additional pay to be on call if that's what the service level requires. Speaking of service level, you'll need to create different customer agreements, service level agreements. For instance, you'll have to establish whether acceptable response times. Do you need to be available 24/7? If so, have the offering and the language to address that with your customer. And you may want to consider the tier model approach to determine what the customer can expect from a field versus engineer versus a call center, and what is the escalation path back to the experts, likely your project resources, which you prefer not to have interrupted, but if the certain escalation criterion is met, then they jump in and get involved too. So having that sorted out and defined for your service organization will be important. In the service and support area, we often see that system integrators can get trapped by insufficient definition of their warranty. So you'll want to make clear when does the warranty start, when does the warranty end, and even when does the supplier warranty begin and end. And what are you going to cover during that warranty period? You need to be clear about, is it simple problem resolution during that warranty period, or are you also doing modifications, even functional expansion, or even performance improvement? Is that included in your warranty, or is that going to be carved out as additional opportunity after the project deployment? As part of that, you want to be clear about what is sustaining after the warranty phase. Are you, from a sustaining engineering perspective, is really about the as-is functionality, such as the hardware quality or software bug fixes or part obsolescence. Sustaining is distinct and different from new development that actually enhances the functionality, and having that defined and clear with the customer so they don't take more ground than you're willing to give is important. So, for instance, a customer may request to accommodate a new product version. Oh, it's just a small change to our product. Can't we make the system handle that as well? May often requires new interfaces, new fixtures, and thus new development, even if it's software, additional software to change the system to address something that was beyond the original spec. Well, that's new development and shouldn't be considered as part of just sustaining the system. Another way it occurs is the customer just asks for incremental enhancements to the system, new feature to address some production need that they have that they didn't see in the original spec, and now want the system adapted or expanded to do that. At times, even repurpose the system into a new area of the production by distinguishing what's new development from merely just sustaining the as-is functionality. You can capture additional service revenue, service opportunities from recognizing and kind of holding the customer accountable for if that's really new development. Then over the life cycle of system, you can consider additional opportunities. Preventative maintenance is the scheduled maintenance activity that is intended to assure system performance, and preemptive known corrective maintenance tasks that can include inspections, calibrations, adjustments, cleaning and repair of the consumable parts. Then there's corrective maintenance. That's unscheduled maintenance activity, requires the product or service perhaps to be returned, and the solution and return the system to its normal operable state. And finally, corrective maintenance is triggered by a detected failure. Examples include swapping failed boards or returning modules. And then, predictive maintenance to predict that a failure is even going to occur. All of these can be things that you list as different service offerings to kind of vet out what the customer is most interested in, and then design your project service to meet that particular way that they want to go about maintaining the system over its entire life cycle. All right. So last thing to really consider is the value of converting the process data into assets themselves, valuable assets for the customer. Honestly, this topic right here, we could dedicate an entire presentation to. So for now, just give you some things to consider with respect to the data and how you can make it more valuable to your customer. For instance, when you consider the customer, how can the data be used to improve their product efficiency, or as we kind of mentioned earlier, perhaps the product itself as they're introducing a minimal viable product and then improving it over time. So what is in the process data that can be turned into value that the customer is willing to pay for you to collect and provide? Next, consider and think about your customer's customer and how you might be able to use data to create value for them, because that would certainly be of interest to your customer. Perhaps it's additional information about the product that they are purchasing, the actual product that they receive. Maybe there's additional specs or information that comes out of the process data that would be valued, and the customer can capture that from their client, and therefore you can tap into that. There may be a way that you can even access feedback from their customer about their product's performance data that they may be collecting already and correlate that to the process data itself, and that might be very interesting to your customer. And finally, don't dismiss the value to you and your organization by accessing process data and analyzing it. Is there a way for you to gain insight and information about your own performance in delivering the systems or maintaining the systems? Can you improve your ability to do your own business well? Or maybe that information can even drive your next design, your next innovation that you're going to offer to the market and the customers by considering that data and how you could extract value from it. Don, any thoughts on the data perspective?
Well, I just think that this is an area where I don't think you can turn on your computer today without getting more and more information about the digital transformation. And when you look at the integrators, in a sense, they're very well positioned to take advantage of it because we really know what that data means. We have access to all of that data. The biggest challenge for the integrators is we're probably not part of the conversation in the customer where they're discussing the importance of the digitization. That's typically held at the C-suite. So if there's some advice in how to really chase down more and more of that service, get involved in that conversation through collaborating with somebody or even just going direct to the C-suite and find out what they're doing. So if you do a little bit of research with your customers, you can find that there is somebody that is charged with making sure that that customer has a digitization program in place.
Great. All right. Well, I know we've covered a lot of ground, so we wanted to leave you with some parting thoughts. Hopefully, we've convinced you that customers' need for services after the project is real. So we encourage you to expand your horizons. Don't just rely on control engineering. No offense to control engineering, but it's more, don't just look for technical information, which us as engineers are prone to do, but tap into organizations like CSIA. We mentioned TSIA and ARC during this presentation. Those organizations that are tracking these sorts of industry trends to disrupt your thinking about the type of services that you can offer your customer, including these post-project ones that we've talked about today. The reality is you can't ignore that these changes are happening, Instead, we encourage you to validate those trends with your own customers and discuss the implications with your team, and get creative about finding ways that these changes can create opportunities for your organization. By embracing these changes, you can create new opportunities, and if necessary, adapt your business model to take advantage of these opportunities. So that's pretty much for it today. We're have a little bit more time. We can take any questions that you might have, or otherwise I'll turn it back to Holly and Colin to wrap things up.
All right, let's see if we have any questions here. All right, give it another second here. Okay, so if we don't have any questions, I'd like to thank you guys for coming to this webinar. On behalf of CSIA, I'd like to thank Jack and Don for this informative discussion. I'd also like to thank all those attending. We hope you found the webinar informational. When you close out of this webinar, a link will pop up to brief evaluation, and we would appreciate it if you could take a moment to share your feedback with us. We'd also like to remind you that a recording of this webinar will be available for viewing within 30 days of this event. Please visit the CSIA website to view this recording or a past webinar you may have missed. This concludes our program for today. Once again, thank you for joining us, and have a good afternoon.